Hello and welcome to BattleTech Faction Briefings. Today, we are checking out a clandestine unit from the Draconis Combine, with a spooky name because it's October and I need to do at least one unit that ties into Halloween. They were formed from the Yakuza. They were intelligence gathering specialists. They were called the Mirrored Edge of Dedication. They are the 5th Ghosts. The Ghost Regiments do not use a standard brigade emblem. The vast majority of the Ghost Regiments do not even use a regimental symbol either. However, at some point after the clan invasion, the 5th would use a symbol. It is an image of a bloodied hand holding a shard of glass shaped like a blade. All members of the brigade paint their mechs in a gray so light it looks white, oftentimes referred to as ghostly white. The 5th add dark gray stripes as their accent colors to set them apart from their brother units. The 5th Ghost are involved in some key battles. To skip spoilers, go to the time listed. After the end of the Fourth Succession War, Theodore Kurita wanted to strengthen the DCMS against the newly aligned Lyran Commonwealth and Federated Sons. He would look towards using the Lessers of Society to build these new units. This was done to add new brigades without taxing the academies or by disrupting society by expanding the samurai caste. One of these groups were the Yakuza gangs. Theodore Kurita would convince them it would be to their benefit to help build new military units. The fledgling units would be given some older military equipment. Thus, the Yakuza gangs had to supply nearly everything for their units. In addition to that, much of the information about these regiments would be kept secret, but by 3033, they would be given the Ghost Regiment title. There was great mistrust for these units for obvious reasons. The Ghost Regiments were treated more like mercenaries, where they had to take care of their own logistics and resupply. They would gather these supplies via the black market. While some of the unit would be built by the Ronin War, the Ghost Brigade would be held in reserve. The Ghost Regiments would be kept as a secret weapon against the Federated Commonwealth when they finally invaded in 3039. As the war broke out, the 5th and 6th Ghost would be sent in to fight back against the powerful FedCom forces. They would be sent to Biham, a world that had been recently captured, but some of the local forces were still fighting back. The Ghosts would arrive to face the 8th Crucius Lancers and Laurel's Legion. The Ghost Regiments would divide into company-sized forces that would strike at the FedCom team from all sides. The lack of coordination in the FedCom forces made this a much easier battle. The AFFS troops had difficulty dealing with the way the 5th Ghost used and gathered intel, as well as the more wild fighting style of the 6th, which was mostly made up of women. It was not what the FedCom troops had trained to deal with when preparing for this war. The fight was made easier as Laurel's Legion were kept on an orbital station because the Crucius Lancers would deny them the authority to land and assist in the fight. This was partially due to bias against mercenaries, especially those who had fought for the Capellan Confederation in the past. In about a month, the 8th would get surrounded in the capital of the world. This would lead to a brief siege. Laurel's Legion would disobey orders and hit the 6th Ghost from the rear, giving the AFFS a chance for a counterattack. However, the issues between the FedCom commanders prevented cooperation. In 2 weeks, the Legion fled the world and had a difficult fight in orbit. About a week later, in early September, the 8th Crucius Lancers would also abandon the world. After the war, the 5th Ghost would be stationed on Shimonoseki, feeling very confident about their future prospects. By 3050, the 5th Ghost would be a heavy regiment, with a wing of arrow fighters and a regiment of combat vehicles as support. They would maintain their post on Shimonoseki prior to the arrival of the clans. They would not be involved in fighting the clans, but they would play a more important role after the Battle of Tukyid. The 5th Ghost would use their contacts in the underground and black markets to gather information from deep within the Clan Smoke Jaguar occupied zone. They would get moved to nowhere by 3054 and would trade their valuable information for valuable military equipment. During this time of information gathering, they would have occasional fights with various Smoke Jaguar raiding teams. Their advanced equipment helped keep them alive during this time. The information gathered by the spies and agents of the 5th Ghost would help the DCMS and Star League forces put together their plans for Operation Bulldog. During the campaign, the 5th would continue their information gathering and indulge in occasional skirmishes, but they would not be a main part of the assault force. The intelligence gathering efforts of the 5th would continue as the First Combine Dominion War broke out. The world of Keeson would get attacked by elements of the Ghost Bear Delta Galaxy. The 12th Dairon regulars would get overwhelmed and would have to escape. However, the world was held by units from the 31st Division of the Com Guard. The 5th Ghost would be sent in to assist. Upon arrival on Keeson, the Ghosts would divide up into company or smaller-sized units. They would run a guerrilla war that would eventually lead to the retreat of the Ghost Bear forces, keeping the world in Combine hands. After the invasion, the 5th Ghost rebuilt and continued their defensive works against the clans. By 3067, they would be stationed on Shirotori and would be at full strength with a high amount of advanced tech. Strangely, they had very little to no clan tech. The 5th Ghost would be transferred to Graham, where they would protect the world from Blakist attacks due to the proximity of the world to the Word of Blake Protectorate. The Wobbies would attack the world 3 times. The final attack featured aero fighters and pocket warships. The Blakists would destroy the main spaceport, the dropship facilities, and over half a battalion of the Ghosts. Over the 3 assaults, the 5th Ghost would get chewed down to 55% effective, but they held the world. By the end of the era, the 5th would have 65% advanced tech, and as the Dark Age dawned, they would start building up to a reinforced regiment, while retaining their garrison on Graham. Of note, most of the Ghost regiments were removed from the DCMS roles as the era came to an end. The 5th Ghost would be one of the few to continue on, but as the decades passed, there would be no attempts to rebuild the other Ghost regiments. In 3085, the 5th Ghost would be stationed on Harrow's Sun. The remaining Ghost regiments would still be low on the resupply rolls. The Ghosts had to get supplies from the black market and the salvage from repelled enemy raids, as they had done in the past. The Federated Suns would attack several times during this era, making rebuilding more difficult as they inflicted damage at a rate faster than the Yakuza could gather recruits and resources. The 5th Ghost would be able to get some revenge when they joined in on the invasion of the Federated Suns in 3144. They would join in on the assault on Robinson. They would do well and the world would be taken for the Combine. Then, they would move on to the invasion of Rochester. The 5th would not do as well in this battle. Their Aerofighter forces would hunt after ground targets, leaving the dropships vulnerable. The Planetary Militia would shoot down half the 5th's dropships. Upon securing an LZ, the commander of the 5th would execute the wing commander in front of all his troops, as a reminder of what happens when you do not follow orders. After that, the invasion went smoothly. The AFFS would call in for reinforcements, but professional dunderhead, First Prince Caleb Davian, refused as he was focused on his invasion of the Capellan Confederation. The world of Rochester would fall, and the Combine war machine would press forward. Due to their losses, the 5th would be used as a garrison on the newly captured world of Franklin. They would spend 3 years fighting the local resistance forces. The 1st Avian Guards would raid the world in 3147 as part of Operation Percival. The Guards had support from the 1st Kestrel Grenadiers and 1st Avalon Hussars. They would meet up with and resupply the local rebel forces as part of a Federated Suns counterattack. The Ghosts went to their standard tactic of small unit strikes that made them difficult targets for the Fed Suns troops to locate. However, the AFFS had a bigger goal in mind. Thus, the Grenadiers and Hussars would leave the world after giving as many supplies as they could to the resistance forces. Despite the resupply, the Ghosts did not see the resistance as a real threat, until an assassination attempt on the commander occurred, but it was the XO of the Ghosts that would get killed. The commander would start a mission to hunt and destroy the rebels in retaliation. The Davian guards would use artillery to bombard the ghosts. They would be pinned down until they used a team of cricket battle mechs to race in and distract the antlions the guards were using to pin down the ghosts. This gave an opening for the rest of the 5th Ghost to attack. In short order, the Davian forces would be driven off the world, but new rebels would eventually rise up due to the collateral damage caused from all the fighting. There would be a multi-world counterattack in 3149. But the world of Franklin would not fall to AFFS soldiers. Instead, the locals would rise up and drive off the 5th Ghost and Combine government. It is likely they all retreated back to Combine space, but the information is currently unclear. For the time being, this is where the story of the 5th Ghost stops. The 5th Ghost are quite unique amongst the Ghost Brigade. They have their own emblem, they are intel gathering focused, and they lasted through the Dark Age. Their efforts were a boon to the Draconis Combine, and it is likely they will continue to serve in the 3rd Combine Dominion War. They may not be samurai, but sometimes you need a Yakuza to get the job done. Despite some of them being criminals, there are some notable pilots in the 5th Ghost. Andy Lontau. She was a member of the Yakuza and the first commander of the 5th Ghost, who led them to victory in the War of 39. She began the tradition of collecting intel and using hit-and-fade tactics to take on bigger enemies. She would retire in the early 3050s. Paul Cohen. He was the XO of the 5th Ghost in the 3050s. He was in charge of intelligence gathering against Clan Smoke Jaguar. The intel his team provided to the DCMS is one of the reasons why the 5th got improved equipment during this time. He would get promoted after the first Combine Dominion War and would be the commander of the 5th Ghost in the 3060s. Richard Schaefer. He was the commander of the cavalry forces during the mid-31st century. He was given the honor of keeping tabs on the 5th, just in case they turned traitor or went against Combine interests. In the worst-case scenario, he was given authority to commandeer the infantry forces and any local forces in order to eliminate the 5th Ghost if they became an internal security threat. Toshio Hayashi. He was in command of the Ghosts in the Dark Age. He would command his forces in the invasion of the Federated Suns. He was known for brutal tactics, including putting any threats to his command in the front lines until they were eventually killed. He would hold Franklin from the counterattack and would keep the Ghosts together with his Yakuza boss mentality. Akara Adeyemi. A light company commander in the Dark Age. She would play a key role in the Battle of Franklin in 3147. Her company would rush into enemy lines to disrupt a team of antlions. She would grapple one of the antlions with her cricket and remove its head-mounted machine gun. She would gain the nickname of Bronco Buster, and the machine gun would be kept as a war trophy. She pilots a cricket. Andrea Massoud. She was a tank commander during the Dark Age. Her mother was a former member of Clan Novacat who served in the Republic of the Sphere, which tarnished her good academy record in the eyes of the DCMS. The attack on Franklin was her opportunity to turn her luck around. She survived the battle and had hopes for greater glory. She pilots a Narukami heavy tank. The Ghost Brigade is an odd one when it comes to putting a team together. They do have some older Combine tech, but most of their gear is either stolen, acquired on the black market, or in rare cases, salvage. Thus, they have a more mercenary style of mixed equipment with an emphasis on Combine mechs. The 5th Ghost stand out as they received advanced equipment by trading information to the DCMS. Strangely, they lacked clan tech in most noted logistics reports, despite having encounters with Clan Smoke Jaguar and Clan Ghost Bear. By 3067, they averaged over half their gear being comprised of Star League level or Inner Sphere Omni tech, making them unique amongst the Ghosts. The 5th Ghost also have limited control from their original gangs, making them a very independent force. Oftentimes, they would be a heavy mech regiment. The tactics of the 5th Ghost were built around a small unit hit-and-run strikes. They would rely on their recon and intel teams to help them attack at the right time. However, as time passed, they would learn defensive maneuvers as they did more garrison work in the 32nd century. As support, they had infantry, armor, and arrow fighters. Their original forces were mostly pulled together with what they could find. Their amount of fighter support would vary over the years, usually averaging 2 wings of fighters. Their combat vehicles would be a medium armor regiment and be filled with Kurita loyalists, just in case the Ghosts got out of hand. Their infantry had a recon team and 24 VTOL units who were trained to gather information and provide logistics support. Their infantry also included a team of skilled engineers who were able to keep their mechs running despite material limits. They did have enough dropships, but their jump ship assets are unclear. It is likely that they would rent their jump ships or rely on the DCMS for interplanetary transport. They are not a typical Ghost Regiment, and that is probably why they survived for so long. The 5th Ghost lack any fiction I could find, which is a shame since there are some good ghost stories out there. They have plenty of information in several source books, especially about the battles they fought. However, some of the books only have logistics data. It should also be noted they have 3 entries in the technical readout books. I've been wanting to do a video on the Ghost Brigade for a very long time. I have a general liking for the more odd units in the BattleTech universe, if you haven't noticed that from my previous videos. I chose the 5th because they had an emblem which most of the other units lack. I liked covering them, and I'm looking forward to the next time I get to cover a Ghost Regiment, probably in October of next year, because you know, ghosts. I do recommend painting up a set from the Ghost Brigade, including the 5th. The super light gray and dark gray stripes are a cool look. The only worry with the ghosts is that they might get mistaken for the Comm Guard. If you have painted up a set of ghosts, any of the regiments, let me know in the comments. Next time, I'll be looking at the Otomo, an elite unit that protects House Kurita. Then, we will be exploring the Lyran Commonwealth in November with the 3rd Lyran Guards. After that, a mercenary unit, or maybe a clan unit. I haven't decided as of this recording. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your continued support as my channel adjusts to my new life schedule. May your weapons stay hot, and your reactors stay cool. I have over 50 BattleTech faction briefing videos on a handy playlist for those who need more Stompy Boys in their life. Until next time, I'll see you at the tavern.